when Pride asked me to speak to you about some of the things we've been working on, I jumped at the chance because I love to talk. Just ask my wife. I love to share my knowledge with you, and I love to help others. And so it's definitely an honor and privilege to speak to BCI this morning. And with that being said, when people find out I've been on Dance with the Stars, they ask me the same three questions. One, are the stars really that good in person, or do they do a bunch of editing and is it smoke and mirrors? And two, is there any hanky-panky going on with the stars and the dancers? I know you're thinking that. And three, you're not a star. How in the heck did you get on that show? And I hope you didn't dance. So let me first tell you, no, I didn't dance. Case in point, I'm a terrible dancer. This is my wedding dance about 5 years ago. I'm very lucky. I tell Pride, I must have a good personality. I'm not sure. But it took me 6 months to learn this 2-minute dance. And if you look at my lovely wife, Tommy's face, she's gritting her teeth and she's saying, stop stepping on my feet, please. And why do we waste all that money on dance lessons? So no, I didn't dance. In fact, I don't have a dance gene. Luckily, our son has the dance gene. And if this works, oh, wait, I guess it's not going to work. Well, just pretend he's dancing to Talking Heads. Okay, he's a dancer for sure, but no, I didn't dance. What I did was I spoke to the audience about how the stars could learn a new dance every week. If you haven't seen the show, they learn a new dance week in and week out. They're not dancers. A lot of people say they're not even stars, but that's a different story. And they have judges, they're being critiqued, and so there's immense pressure on them, day in and day out. But that same pressure goes with you here at BCI because you're under a lot of pressure. You have immense challenges. The last quarter, you feel the crush of the last quarter, I know, because the volume exceeds human capacity, as Pride told me a bunch of times. You feel the pressure of clients not appreciating what you do because they believe what you do is free. You feel the pressure of disgruntled clients when they get mad at you and it's not your fault and you have to keep a good attitude. You feel that pressure every day at work, but there's also basic pressures, like the pressure of having great energy after a long day and going home and having a great attitude for your family and your friends. There's a lot of pressure. And what you do here at BCI is really important. Who you are is really important. So you deserve to be at your best. You deserve to be happy. And so the question is, how can you handle all these challenges? How can you handle all this pressure? And the simple answer is this: emotional mastery. Because when you master your emotions, you master your world. And I learned the power of emotions when I was 15. Yes, that's me. This is the 70s. And let me say, you can see by the wood racket and the hairdo, or I call it the hair don't. And I've kept those shorts because I know they're coming back in stock. And I know Pride has similar shorts, and he's kept them too. And yeah. How do they work?
Not well.
All right.
Fit right in.
And I was 15, and I was on the tennis team, had a girlfriend. I was living the great life, and a heartbeat later, my dad died. And I remember I went from this happy-go-lucky teen to a terrible teen, troubled teen, and I was getting into fights, I was yelling at teachers, and luckily the vice principal appreciated that, and he called me to his office and he said, "Greg, you're in trouble. You're going to be expelled if you don't see Dr. Carlson." And I was like, "I don't want to see Dr. Carlson. I don't want to see a shrink. I don't even know what a shrink was back then." And I definitely didn't want to see one. But he insisted. So that afternoon, my mom took me to see Dr. Carlson. Dr. Carlson, after a few moments, knew what was struggling, why I was struggling, and he took this pillow off the couch and gave it to me, and he said, "Greg, I want you to pretend this pillow is your dad. I want you to start hitting it." And I was like, "I don't want to hit that pillow. It's my dad." But he insisted. So I took the pillow and nonchalantly started hitting it, and all of a sudden I started hitting it harder and harder, and all of a sudden my emotions got out of whack, and I took that pillow and I threw it on the ground, stomped on it, and I yelled out this painful scream. And that was the start of my journey. And I knew I know a lot of you probably lost a parent at a young age, and maybe you repressed the emotions like I had, but don't worry, we're not handing out pillows this morning. But once Dr. Carlson allowed me to understand my emotions and gain control of my emotions, it took a while, but I went back to a happy-go-lucky kid. And I vowed to understand from that moment how people can master their emotions. So for the last 30 years, I've worked with some of the great athletes in the world. Like you probably know that guy on the left, he's a local guy, Brant Snedeker. I've worked with him when he was at Vandy. And if you're familiar with Brant, if you're a golf fan, he is a great guy. And he was a great guy back then, and nothing's changed, so it's wonderful. I've worked with people in the NFL, NBA, I've worked with CEOs, I've worked with executives, I've worked with people just like you. And what I discovered is everybody has immense talent. Everybody in here has immense talent. Some people, what they can do is they can release their talent. There's other people, they have immense talent, but they're blocked. And really the one difference, the ability to release your talent, is emotional toughness. And that's really the secret. The people that really raise their game under pressure, that basically perform at their best in every situation, they have emotional toughness. But before I describe what emotional toughness is, let me describe to you what emotional toughness is not. And if you're wondering what the negativity bias is, let me tell you. 40,000 years ago, when we were hunters and gatherers, and we were being chased by mastodons and saber-toothed tigers like that animal right there, we were not masters of our domain. We lived out of fear, right? We were wondering what was over the next hill. We always worried whether we were going to get killed, and we just tried to survive, right? And there's so many people that have retained and maintained and refined that negativity bias, and they live by that now. And so they live out of fear, they live out of worry, all they're trying to do is surviving. They are emotionally untough. But the most emotionally tough people have flipped the switch. And they do the opposite. They live out of joy and not fear. They live out of confidence, not doubt and worry. And they are thriving. They're not just surviving. And in a nutshell, what they do is they basically have what I call the juice of life. And to explain this in a more visual setting, I have an instrument here. And I do this in my class. I teach it. Pride didn't say this, but I teach at Austin Peay State University. And I do this exhibit, we might say, and I tell them this is going to be on the test. When I say this is on the test, that means they have to listen. So this is on the test, okay? So level 1 question. If I squeeze this orange, what comes out? Orange juice, right? If I squeezed it yesterday, what comes out? Orange juice. If pride squeezes it, what comes out? Orange juice. Orange juice always comes out, right? Level 2 question. Why? Why does orange juice come out?
It's an orange.
Because it's an orange. Because that's what's inside. That is what's inside. Level 3 question. What have you put inside? Because if you put in negativity, if you put in fear, if you put in doubt, that is what comes out when you get squeezed. And we all get squeezed, right? That's the human experience. You get squeezed every day at work. You get squeezed at home. Everywhere you go and you're getting squeezed by pressure. So if you put in fear and negativity, that's what's going to come out. But if you put in joy and confidence and happiness and all that good stuff, all those positive, powerful emotions, when you get squeezed, that's what's going to come out. And so the most emotionally tough people put in the right juice of life. And so it's really my goal today is to help you put in the right juice so that when you get squeezed at work or in your life, all those great emotions come out, and so that you'll be emotionally tough. Here you go.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
I know there's blood in here.
And we're going to do a little Q&A after this. And so, I love your questions. And so if you want to write down some questions as we go through, I'll learn a lot from your questions. I was speaking to 8-year-old golfers in Franklin at the golf house last summer. And I'm talking to them for 20 minutes about confidence, composure, anxiety, all that stuff. And if you've ever talked to 8-year-olds, they go like this to you the whole time. And for 20 minutes, they're just doing this. And I say, you guys have any questions? Really, any questions? And finally, one kid in the back row goes, he's jumping up, and I go, what is he? He goes, you know, you look just like Will Ferrell. It must be the hair, I don't know. I was hoping for George Clooney, but you can't pick your favorites. So, to be specific about putting the juice of life, there's what I call the emotional toughness triad. You have to be aware of the emotions you need at that particular moment. You have to use primers. And primers are words, actions, images to push your emotions in a certain direction. And so that when you get squeezed, these emotions come out. And really, our habits come out under pressure. So over time, you're trying to create the right positive habits. Now, I'm doing this really fast because we're going to do this in a lot more detail later. But I just wanted to explain to you this point because a great example, and one of my heroes, someone who is definitely emotionally tough, is this guy, Muhammad Ali. And long before he was boxing champion of the world, long before he strode up those stairs shaking from Parkinson's to light the Olympic flame in Atlanta, remember that? He's holding the torch. And that torch he's holding is actually in the Muhammad Ali Museum in Kentucky. Has anybody been there? In Louisville? It's great. You got to go. Well, he was poor, and he grew up very poor in Louisville. And his mother could barely afford food, definitely not expensive toys. But the young Muhammad Ali, back then known as Cassius Clay, thank you, saw this blue bike. It was a Schwinn, had that great Schwinn, you know, emblem, and the leather seat and the handlebars. Man, he wanted that bike so bad, but he couldn't afford it. So he got a job boxing groceries, excuse the pun, worked all summer long, finally had enough money for his bike, handed the shopkeeper the money. Next day, he rode all over Louisville for 8 hours, showing off that bike to his friends, his family. He loved that bike. The following day, went to work, parked his bike, made sure the lock was nice and tight, came out from work, someone had clipped his lock and stolen his bike. He never found his bike again. He never found out who stole his bike. But we all know Muhammad Ali is a true champion, and he harnessed that negative energy into a positive. He's totally emotionally tough. So every time he'd step in the ring, he would point at his opponent and say, "You're the guy who stole my blue bike." And that's how he got supercharged. That's emotionally tough. Now, it's not about sport. You'll see this everywhere. If you look closely, all successful people do this. How about this guy? Matthew McConaughey, right? Won Academy Award for the Dallas Buyers Club. And before every scene, he has this. He goes like this. He pumps his chest 3 times to get emotionally pumped up for that scene, to find his emotions. And Leonardo DiCaprio saw him do that. And this is Wolf of Wall Street. And Leonardo said, let's put that in the scene. And if you know that movie, when they're talking in the scene, he's actually pumping his chest 3 times. All the successful people, they do some type of activity to find their emotions. That's how they get emotionally tough. And you'll see it everywhere. And you know, the difference is Muhammad Ali is different from me and different from you. Matthew McConaughey is different from me, which is different from you. I don't know if you know the story about him, but he got arrested playing bongos naked. So unless you do that, you're probably different from him. But so we're all different. So we got to find our own uniqueness. And this system works if it's based on your own uniqueness. And before I move forward, let me talk a little bit about emotions. Emotions are mystical, they're magical, they're irrational. Sometimes we have no clue why we do things. I mean, I cry at a sad kid's movie. I don't know why I cry, but my wife looks at me all the time. She goes, "Are you kidding? Really, are you kidding?" I don't know why I cry, I do. I don't know why I get mad when I burn the scrambled eggs. It's the skillet's fault, right? Ask my wife. What about you? Why do you, when that person cuts you off when you're late, you give them the finger? Okay, not that finger. Or why? No. All right. Or give, why do we get so mad, like, when we're late for a meeting and things don't go our way? It's because emotions are irrational. And they can lead to anger and fear and depression, but they can also lead to joy, excitement, energy. And so we want to harness all those positive emotions. And so I need to ask you a question before we move on. And what do you think is the primary emotion? What emotion do you think influences all others? That's what I call the primary emotion. What emotion kind of is on the top run of the ladder and can it lead to all these great positive emotions? What do you think? What's that?
Joy. Happy.
Happiness, okay.
Joy.
Joy, okay. Fear, all right. Is that personal? Okay. All right. No one said what I thought you were going to say. Love.
Oh.
It's not love. Oops. It's not love, but I would say love is on par, and I'm going to take that a little bit on the side. Love is very powerful, but this emotion that I'm going to talk to you about is as powerful as love. Definitely. What's that?
Positivism?
It's related to that. All the emotions you talked about are underneath. And let me sidestep here, and you're going to need to give me about 7 minutes. So give me some freedom to answer this question, because it's based on this new research that I've done that most people haven't heard about. And it started 10 years ago when this fellow named David Metter, he's the national blind golf champion. He lives in Nashville. Has anybody seen him talk? He's a great guy. He's really a good friend of mine now. He came to my happiness class. I teach a class called Happiness. Yes, I'm very happy and lucky to do that. And he's one of the happiest guys I know. And so he speaks to my happiness class, but he also talks to my class what I know everyone in here is thinking, and that is, how does a blind man play golf, right? Well, he has a coach, and the coach takes the club and aligns the club, aligns the face. David takes it back, and hits it down the middle. And he's really good. I've played with him a few times. I've bet him. I've lost money to him. He's really good. He also tells my class of the horrific accident, how he's coming over the hill way too fast. He can't stop. His car hits the tree. His head bashes into the windshield, puts him in a coma. And when he awakens in the hospital bed, the doctor's standing over him and says, David, you severed your ocular nerve. You're going to be blind for the rest of your life. From the age 18, he's going to be blind for the rest of his life. But he also tells my class that before the accident, he was uncaring, he was selfish, he had no idea who he wanted to be or where he wanted to go. But the accident changed him to his core. And after the accident, David tells my class that he became much more compassionate, much more caring, much more focused on who he wanted to be. In fact, he tells my class that blindness allowed him to really understand what is important in his life, like friends and family. He also tells my class that he's the only man in America who could walk through Home Depot and never see anything he wants. But that's his joke, not mine. David Metter allowed me to see that the old science of loss is incomplete. I know a lot of you are familiar with the old science, the Kubler-Ross stages. She investigated people who were dying, and she understood that they went through stages: anger, denial, depression, bargaining, acceptance. Well, David just didn't accept his lot. He just didn't bounce back. He bounced back even higher. He transcended because of his tragedy. He turned tragedy into transcendence. He used adversity as a superpower for personal growth. In fact, David Metter exemplifies one of my favorite quotes from Michelangelo, the famed sculptor, who said this: I saw the angel in the stone, and I carved until I set it free. I love that quote. There's so many people, when they are hit by a terrible tragedy like David, they're frozen in stone. They build a fortress around their heart and they don't let anybody in. But there's other people who use the tragedy as a chisel to actually free their authentic self to become the person they're meant to be. And I know there's a lot of people that are stuck in pain. I lost my dad at an early age. We had a few miscarriages. I've had a lot of pain in my life, but I know a lot of people have had a lot of pain and they're still stuck. And I want to understand how they could get unstuck. And so I investigated people from all over the world who said they had turned tragedy into transcendence. I interviewed a woman who lost a husband and a daughter in a Mumbai terrorist attack, and she said it was so painful.